Okay, so this is part 2 of atheism. Why atheism? Well, I've honestly just been on Reddit for a while, and, I... It really comes down to not only just where I've been surfing online, but for those of us who... This is a question, I guess, to everybody. For those of us who ask... who don't believe in a deity, in a supernatural or personal God. For those of us who don't really need to believe in someone like that, some kind of supreme being ruling everything, controlling everything, um, what what reason is there to then go another step further and simply just not believe in any kind of spiritual experience? Because you can have somebody who believes in spirituality, and then you could have somebody who's a spiritual person, who belongs to a religion, or not, and somebody who's had spiritual experiences, but they haven't been with some kind of personal guide whatsoever, actually. They've rather been some kind of non-personal force or spiritual energy or something like that, some kind of intuition for some kind of greater cosmic connection or cosmic consciousness or even some kind of nirvana or satori experience. Let's say you have a Zen monk who doesn't really understand the doctrine, who doesn't really understand anything. He doesn't really understand the scriptures, but he's trying. He's doing meditation, and then one day he actually has a satori experience. He actually wakes up, and he sort of realizes, non-rationally, that his experiences are somehow transcendent, selfless. He experiences reality beyond his ego, beyond his thoughts and ideals and his self-image and his identity. The illusion of his self just completely gets eaten up. It's evaporated. And he's just there for an hour or two, and then he comes back, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, an atheist walks up to him and he says, "So what are you all excited about?" And then the monk says, "Oh, I've just had this enlightening experience. I don't know what to make of it." And then the atheist asks him, "Well, what happened during it?" And then the monk replies, "Well, I saw everything. I saw myself as connected to everything. I saw myself as an illusion. I saw all beings and all things interconnected. What is that? Do you know what to make? You know how to make sense of such an experience?" And the atheist tells him, "Well, there is no such thing as a supernatural. There is no such thing as a personal God. Whatever you experience is merely a brain malfunction, a misfire." And then the monk says, "Surely not. This is anything but a misfire. This is a profound, life-changing experience." And the atheist replies, "Well, that's gibberish in metaphysics." To which the monk replies, "I don't know what you're talking about. What I had was a direct experience which I cannot even explain in words. And for you to merely say, 'This is just a brain fart,' some kind of odd, delusional state of mind that you've trained your brain into." Well, the monk would reply, "Quite frankly, I am not the first to have experienced this, and I'm not the last. Hundreds before me, maybe thousands of it, have experienced this in my lineage. I want to understand what it is better, but to merely write it off as some kind of delusional state is ridiculous." And I would tend to agree with the monk. Um, I don't think common atheist arguments really address what many different spiritual experiences actually are. Um, I mean, that's just really an example. Let's take it lightly and not literally, but um, I think there are different levels and different types of spiritual experiences, and depending on, of course, the culture you're from, your own personal history, your own psychological makeup. But there are some things that we can tie together, some kind of similarities between the experiences. For instance, we can sort of see that there are personal experiences with God or gods, personal gods. and personal God. And then there are non-personal entities or forces or direct intuition into the nature of everything. Um, Ken Wilber has mentioned this as exoteric versus esoteric religion. I think I'm saying this right, I'm not sure. So basically, the difference is in exoteric religion, um, you have or you need the surface features of the religion. You're going to need the metaphysics of that religion. That's how you interpret it. You interpret it literally. So whatever the scripture says really happened, and actually happened as it said. No interpretation, no hidden meaning. Now, esoteric religion is often a spiritual experience which has a deeper meaning than the way it is written. An allegory or a poem or some kind of story with some meaning. Esoteric religion has deeper hidden meanings. And in a sense is much like poetry, where often enough the meaning is not directly in the words. So if, for instance, if you say in a poem that you are floating down the river like a rose petal or something like that, it doesn't literally mean it. It could mean some kind of other psychological disconnection. It has some kind of other meaning that usually goes beyond the literal interpretation of the scriptures. In the same sense, religion has that as well. There are people who are going to interpret it literally and experience literally. They're going to interpret their experiences according to what they believe literally. And there are people who are going to interpret their experiences according to some kind of underlying meaning in it that they can intuit. So the same sort of thing is going to happen when you have some kind of mystical experience or some kind of spiritual experience. It's going to have something deeper. And it depends on who you are and if you're ready for it yet, or if you're even cognitively able to grasp what's happening to you. Whether or not you'll be able to interpret it deeper or more, I guess, more shallow, more literal. So, like, often atheists, not atheism, because you can be an atheist and not have to do this, but atheism in general, the people I've bumped into, the communities I've talked to, the posting forums and all that, often enough they simplify religion to be this, they box it up to be this one-dimensional primitive reality in which the practitioners of religions believe in, quite frankly, some kind of backwards ideology, something that our ancestors believed in, who didn't have the knowledge we do, who didn't have the scientific knowledge about the universe, so they made up stories and believed those stories literally. And the typical argument atheists make against all spirituality in general is that there is no supernatural, there is no king in the sky watching over you, there is no some kind of voodoo spirit intertwined in all things. They see it as primitive religion. They only define religion as its primitive form. But, one moment. But religion isn't just its primitive form. Societies have evolved, and we have evolved with them. Because we are society. So we're not going to have outdated religions for a modern society. When we emerged from tribal cultures, we tended to move beyond shamanism and animism into a more mythical, still polytheistic religious doctrine. So as societies evolved and understood and interacted with the world in more complex ways, religions themselves adapted and evolved because our own outlook on the world adapted and evolved. And I'm going to go to this part in part 3, since I guess we're out of time again, because this is a 10-minute video. So in the next part I'm going to be talking about what is this evolution of religion, and how atheism only addresses one aspect of religion and not the higher stages. And yeah, so stay tuned.